one thing I was really hoping I could accomplish when I made it to the Pacific Coast was to show you all these great boondocking sites where you could camp for free. But there's a little bit of a snag in that. First of all, I really couldn't find any. Because all the roads wind and wind and wind through the forest, and every time it looks like there's a place to pull over, there's a fence there. Just doesn't seem there's a lot of public land. And even the state campgrounds, which were a little pricey, didn't really offer a lot. I went into what was supposed to be a state park, Saddle Mountain, took the worst winding road, and found out it was only for tent camping. So it pays to do your research a little bit better than I did if you're trying to find something on the coast. But now I know it's not easy. Now, there were some campgrounds I found, if you can consider them campgrounds. Basically, it was just a place to pull over, although they still charge you $15 a night. But one of my biggest concerns was that a lot of the people that were camping in places like that really didn't seem to be camping. At least not my definition of camping. They're kind of people that were there for the long haul, although they weren't supposed to be. You know, pile up the kindling, pile up the lumber, have about 10 jerry cans of diesel for their generators, and they have the dogs that you don't want to pat, if you know what I mean. And they didn't really seem overly friendly, didn't want me to be there, and wasn't a place I felt comfortable with. So a lot of places, a lot of websites will tell you a little spot in the map to go, but you really got to go by feeling, because some of those spots are just not worth your safety or your comfort to even stay for a night. And that's what happened to me. I went to a few places, and you just get that weird feeling that something's not right, that these aren't campers. And I didn't want to leave my trailer there when I went around with my Jeep, so I was like, well, I'm not going to stay there at all then. I'd rather pay a few bucks for safety than to save a few dollars and things going a lot worse. So you got to use your gut feeling sometimes, and that's what I do. So sorry folks, this section is not going to show you a lot of really good cheap camp spots, but I did see a lot of great scenery. Few would argue that the Pacific coast of the U.S. is overwhelming in its vastness, majestic in its beauty, and untamed in its fury. The beach seems to go forever, and the hypnotic pulse of the waves is just so soothing to watch. There's no better place to explore it than the Pacific coast of Oregon. The sand is enchanting, and with low tide, it beckons those enchanted to explore its furthest edge. On the shores of Fort Stevens State Park lies the wreck of the Peter Iredale. It was a large four-masted sailing ship in its day, but unfortunately it ran aground in 1906 and has been trapped there ever since. Piece by piece, the Iredale slowly disappears, with only a skeleton of its bow and foremast still remain. But at sunset, the Iredale comes alive again as the last light of the day shines through a silhouette of rust and steel. Well, I didn't stay long, but I did see signs of an unusual custom unique to the area. It seems West Coasters have a habit of drop-kicking green dumpsters and have to be told not to do it. Very strange. Now, I've been giving pretty bad directions so far, so let me fill you in on my next plan. Leaving the coast, I headed east on Highway 20 from Newport. I first stopped in on a little town with the cutest name, then continued up into the Cascade Mountains in search of a good free place to camp. But on the way I saw a sign that looked like R2-D2 of Star Wars. But on closer examination it was a picture of a wagon train, signifying I was on an old wagon road from days gone by. But my eyes weren't finished playing tricks with me yet, because as I passed through Sweet Home, something caught my sight and I wasn't sure what I was seeing. It appeared to be a statue of two guys, one bent over and the other one holding something in his hands. I had to see for myself what it was all about. I found the guy leaning over was actually a prospector who just found a nugget panning for gold, while the other guy was a lumberjack proudly holding the handle of his axe. Of course he was just holding an axe. What were you thinking? But what really bothers me is what I should have seen but didn't. Apparently there was a museum of things found by metal detectors in Sweet Home, and I didn't know it was there. But at least I enjoyed Sweet Home's beautiful Foster Lake. As I carried on up into the Cascade Range, I found a sign that said House Rock Campground. I was a little hesitant though, as it sounded too close to Jailhouse Rock Campground. The last thing I needed was a noisy party of Elvis fans, but when I checked it out, the road actually showed a lot of promise. Wow, that's a huge spruce, I believe. It's probably been here for ages. And there's two parasitic maples, one on each side. They're probably saying, "Grandpa, You've had a good life. It's time to go timber. Give us a little bit more light. See if you can hit that trailer in the background. We'll give you extra points as you go out. I hope Grandpa is deaf and he's not listening. Grandpa Spruce decided to let my trailer live another day. Not only was it a gorgeous, tranquil campsite, but it came with benefits. Although no toilet, they encouraged you to act like a cat and even provided a shovel, although not as big a shovel as I'd like. So while I act like a cat, I'm going to let the forest take over from here.
think the season's changing a little.
Well, I'm off and running again and heading east, heading into the snow. The Pacific coast was interesting, but you know, everybody likes different things. If I had the choice between, you know, moss dripping on a Sitka spruce and a nice dry ponderosa pine, I'd take a ponderosa pine any day. However, let's talk about that Pacific Coast, because I had all these preconceived ideas of what it was going to be like. It was going to be windy, it was going to be rainy, and there's going to be tons of places for me to camp for free. And I was wrong. When I got there, it wasn't windy at all. It wasn't rainy, it was nice and sunny. There was hardly a cloud in the sky most of the time. And finding a place for free, well, that was a challenge. But I do want to mention one thing that I thought was kind of interesting, is when I went to one state park, I thought there was one park that for sure I'd find camping anywhere. It wouldn't be a big deal. And I got there, and all I found were these windy roads, bumpy, scary roads, and I kept, you know, boom, boom, up and down in the trailer. It was terrible. It wasn't anywhere I would recommend to anybody. But as I was winding around these scary roads, I kept seeing these little urban cars all along the sides, taking up all the spots you could pull over. It's like, why are all these little cars, you know, the ones you'd expect to see at a Walmart or a mall, in the woods? And I couldn't figure it out until at one point I finally saw somebody coming out with a bag of mushrooms. It was mushroom season. I never even would have thought of that in making my plans. It was the peak of mushroom season. And I'm not talking about morels. I'm talking about them funny mushrooms, the Go Ask Alice type mushrooms. Hit peak season, it was the perfect place to get them. It was a bumper crop this year. Who would have thought? And so it just kind of says, you know, it doesn't matter what your planning is, there's always something you didn't anticipate when you headed out on your trip. Now I know, if you're going to Oregon in the coast, in the northwest, don't go during mushroom season, unless you wanted to be there at that time. But I don't need any strange mushrooms to feel good. I can just sit by a stream and let nature give me the inspiration I need. I hope you enjoyed this video, and will check my others as well.